ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. In the Bible we don't find the concept of Haroset. The Bible just says that the Paschal lamb, the sacrifice of Passover, had to be eaten together with al matzot umerorim yochlu. You should eat it together with matzah and maror. Matzah is the unleavened bread, and maror are the bitter herbs that are supposed to remind us of the bitterness of slavery. But then our rabbis introduced something which is called Haroset. What is this Haroset? Haroset is a combination, and not every community really makes it the same way. It should have, for instance, wine. Why should it have wine? Our rabbis say it reminds us of the blood, maybe the color. Red wine, the color of the blood that was spilled in the time of Egypt. It should have apples. Why should it have apples? Our rabbis say that our ancestors, the women, were under apple trees when they gave birth in order not to be discovered. And they gave birth to 6 at a time in order to multiply enormously. They were afraid lest the Egyptians see them and they will kill their children. Also nuts are involved in that concoction. And depending upon the tradition, some use different kinds of elements to give it a certain flavor. But in any event, you have to have apples, you have to have wine. It's actually a sweet concoction. The color of it is sort of brownish, light brown, to remind you of the bricks that our ancestors had to build in Egypt in order to put up the enormous constructions they were supposed to do for the Egyptians. But there's a very strange tradition, which is the following. When you eat maror, when you eat the bitter herbs, what you do is you dip it into this haroset. You combine the haroset with the bitter herbs, and then you eat the bitter herbs. This way you can really eat the bitter herbs, because they're not so bitter anymore. Once you cover them with haroset, which is a sweet concoction, it is very tasty. And as a matter of fact, many people love to eat haroset by itself, because it is delicious, usually. Then you have to eat it between 2 pieces of matzah. Maror, haroset, and 2 pieces of matzah. This is the way Hillel, one of our ancient sages, said that you have to do like they used to do in the Beit HaMikdash. Why do we combine the haroset with the maror? Maybe in order to take away the bitterness of the maror, as I said. Or maybe to tell us something else. Maybe to tell us that in this world there are no absolutes. There is no bitterness by itself, and there is no sweetness by itself. Usually the two come combined. You know, I always thought it's a very strange tradition that we have at a Jewish wedding. At the end of the ceremony, what we do is we break a glass, we break an object. Why do we do that? It says in the Talmud that one of our sages once went into a home and he saw there was a lot of joy and he felt it was excessive. He took a big jar, dropped it on the floor, and everybody, of course, stopped because of the sound that it made, and stopped there rejoicing, because there must be a limit to rejoicing also. Maybe the breaking of the glass is to tell us that total bliss, total happiness in this world, there is none. Total suffering, there is none either. There are people who are in jail. And you know what they do in jail? They start reading. They start taking notes. Their most important thoughts sometimes come out from the times that they were in solitude. Today we're surrounded by so many things, by so many gadgets, that we have very little time for ourselves. But when we are not enjoying these electronic instruments with which we are surrounded, maybe we can be a little bit with ourselves. So our message to you is, if you have difficulties in life, don't let those difficulties overpower you. Look at the bright side of things. Look at the haroset that maybe this maror has for you. Maybe the bitterness that you are suffering through right now is to teach you a very important lesson, and you should become a different being after you overcome that moment. And if you're overjoyed because you had the winning ticket in the lotto, because something extraordinary happened to you, be careful. Don't let that overpower you either. Redimension yourself. Go back to your feet on the earth and make sure that you face life grounded on what your abilities, your real abilities are. Life is very complex. It isn't simple. It isn't black and white. There are many different colors. It isn't all maror and it isn't all haroset. But let us hope, if you have too much maror right now, if there's too much bitterness in your life, if there's too much bitterness in your society right now, remember, there is also haroset that is waiting someplace. And this bitterness eventually will be covered by haroset so that sweetness will really accompany you for the rest of your life.